Hello guys, it is of course I, Trollface the Man, and in today's video, my dad and I are going to be making a memorial stone for my one friend who lost his dog last year. I did ask him if he was okay with me making this video, and he said yes. He's been very supportive of the channel, and I do appreciate him being okay with this, and maybe this will be useful for somebody else that has a similar project. Unfortunately, it's been a bad year. I had lost my dog earlier this year. My friend lost 2 dogs in the last 2 years. My other friend lost his dog. My sister ended up losing her cat, and it's just been a bad year. But again, we're gonna try and make at least this for my friend, so that way he can put out and have like a nice thing for his dog where he buried them. So this is actually a scrap piece of granite that came from a job. This would have just been thrown out anyways. This one side is only partially finished. This side is actually finished, and this side is finished. We're gonna probably cut it about right here, which is gonna require the back to be finished and this to be refinished. My dad has been working in the granite marble trade for about 45 years. So I'm imploring his help with this. Because I wouldn't really have the tools or the knowledge to start, but we're just going to kind of document the process. Then I'm going to try and 3D print out a stencil and sandblast the stencil to actually give an engraving into the surface of this. So hopefully by the time it's done, it'll actually turn out pretty decent. I guess that's what we're going to go ahead and find out. But yeah, it's going to be cool to at least give this this piece that otherwise would have been trash a second life. So this is the one edge here. It has a little bit of a angle here versus these ones that are more just flat. So I'm figuring this will be the front of the headstone, and that when we cut this, this will just be a flat back, flat side, and we'll just kind of work with this edge that's already there. Again, that's already polished and finished. My hands are dirty, by the way. I have paint and I have silicone caulk all over them, so just disregard that. There's some silicone caulking on the piece. This looks like where the backsplash was supposed to be. I'm just going to take a razor scraper. If you just use razor scraper, flush like that, I'll take the stuff right off. We don't have no fancy, you know, $13,000 jet cutter or something, so this is going to be done the old-fashioned way, which is we're putting down some blue tape here, and then I'm just going to mark a straight line, and he's going to eye it, which you could use a rail to make sure you get a perfectly straight cut. My dad's actually very impressive at being able to cut a very straight line, but like I said, he's been doing this for over 40 years. Well, if this square is straight, then this is slightly out of square. That line's right. That line's right. So what happens sometimes is because this was like a counter, they might actually cut these edges slightly out of square. So we'll try and just square it up by using one measurement and then using this square here to make a straight line. This is 7 inches here. You can see that it's that much out of square from the one end to the other. I'm also going to be making another one for my friend's mom, who also lost a dog, family dog. We're going to use this other side here. Thing is that this side's finished, this side's unfinished, this side's unfinished, and this is going to be the cut. So we're going to actually have 3 edges to polish, and going to have no bevel or edge on that one, but that's all right. We'll go through all that. There. We have it on 2 milk crates. We're going to be cutting that further line out. The weight is distributed from the 2 pieces that are going to separate. So there's some underneath of this one, and then there's the milk crate underneath the other side. So when this is cut into 2, this is just going to rest on here, and this piece is going to rest on here. We're not going to have the edge suddenly want to break off or snap off. This is the saw right here. It's not plugged in. This is a special blade. It's just diamond grit. It's meant for cutting marble and granite and stuff. It just basically grinds it away in a line. Sometimes they can be used dry. Usually we always use it wet though because it makes a lot less dust, and also the blade stays cooler, which can help it not wear down as quick. Now again, he's actually going to be freehand cutting this because he's able to. I'm not able to do that for the rest of us mere mortals. Normally what you would do is you would take a piece of wood or aluminum or something and clamp it on to be a straight line that this edge of the saw would follow to, and that'll give you a perfectly straight cut. But like I said, he's been doing it for so long that he's able to do astonishingly straight cuts even without any type of guide rail. Now for wet cutting, they actually sometimes have saws that have hose attachments that you can use to spray the blade to keep it wet. We're going very low tech, which is literally this cup with a hole in it that I'm going to hold there while he's cutting to keep the blade cool. There's many different ways you can do this. You can use a spray bottle, a squirt gun. Sometimes he even uses a damp sponge that's held against the blade. But I can't necessarily recommend any of those as they're probably not 100% safe, but that's what we're gonna do here.
Cut that edge off.
Cut looks good. Awesome. Oh, we did have a little bit of a blowout here at the bottom.
It always manages to break on the wrong side. That's why I like to put things even going across, you know.
Yeah. Well, we have our two pieces here, and we can continue working from here.
I'm gonna go get my diamond.
We're also left with this big square that could be used for something, maybe like an end table or something if somebody wanted to, or be used to make more stones in the future. We did, unfortunately, on this piece, have a little bit of a blowout on the corner here, and that was from it being cut on an unlevel surface. These milk crates aren't the same level and the floor is very unlevel, so what happens is that as you get down to so little material at the end, it just kind of snaps at times. We should have had a more level to prevent that, but it is what it is. So these are diamond polishing pads, and very similar to sandpaper, the lower the number on here, the coarser the grit is, and the higher the number, the finer it is. This is some type of carrier that's impregnated with very fine diamond particulate. Sometimes there are other things that they can use, like I think cerium oxide and such, depending on what specifically you're grinding. But in general, these will be used to polish up the edges of very hard materials like granite and marble and stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, these channels in here help to basically push out dust while you're doing the polishing in order to help them basically cut better. You can have dry versions of these and you can have wet versions of these. Some do both. And two, if you're using a wet version, this helps kind of spit out the mud and help prevent it from clogging up as you're trying to grind it. So my dad thinks that he's probably going to start with a 50 and then go all the way up to 5,000 at the end, which is going to be multiple steps. Just like if you're sanding wood or anything else, you start low. Like if you're sanding wood, you might start with an 80, then go to a 120, 220, 360, 400, and so forth until you get the amount of smoothness that you want. And the same concept goes here. You start coarse, and then you get finer and finer until you end up with a nice finish at the end. So as he was saying, it actually goes a lot quicker if you're using water for this, but because we're actually down in our basement right now, we don't want to just splash water everywhere. It will get dust around, but this place is already dusty as it is.
You put a bevel on the edge because if there's a sharp edge on granite or marble, as soon as you tap it with something, it'll go ahead and chip it. But if you put a little bevel on it, just a touch, it's really almost indestructible unless you really hit it with something hard.
That makes sense. So the very sharp corners are much easier to break. So he just got done with the 200, and it has a very, it's smooth, but it's very dull and milky still.
Should be getting a little bit of a gloss if you look at it at an angle.
Yeah, you can see a little bit. I can't get it with the light right here though. This is 800, and you can see it's actually starting to take on a shine now. Very dull shine, but this is after the, you said 1500 now?
Yep.
Then he's gonna do 3000 and then 5000. You can see there's a very, very soft sheen now. 3000 now. This is the original finished edge here. This is the new edges that he's polished. Now you're on the 5000?
Yep.
Okay, just finished with the 5000.
Yep.
We don't have it be a 100% perfect polish here. One of the reasonings is because this already finished edge has sort of a softer polish to it anyway, so we're just trying to get it to match. One thing to keep in mind is that it's going to be inset into the ground, for one. It's not going to be in somebody's like kitchen or whatever. And also, as my dad was saying, interestingly enough, sometimes going higher polishes, like higher grits on certain materials, actually can make their polish dull. I'm not quite sure the mechanics of it, but something like this, to achieve an even higher polish, usually you would use some type of sealer or such that might help fill in the micro pores, and that could even be like wax and buffing or something along those lines. What's also interesting about polishing is that it protects the marble, or the granite. In this case would be granite.
After we got everything polished up, I took the pieces back to my house and I spent some time designing up some stencils in FreeCAD. I then printed them out using some standard PLA. I did do some tests first just to make sure that this was viable, which I had good results with. And I then taped the stencils to the granite using some very, very thick duct tape, almost like rubberized duct tape. Figuring that it would hold up to the sandblasting.
So this is the one for bolt. It's all been taped up around the edges to make sure that none of the sand can get through it. I had super glued it in certain areas. Like if you look, like the O's and things like that are disconnected, just to make sure that the pressure from the air doesn't manage to lift them up and get underneath of it. And hopefully we can give a quick sandblast. I'm not going to be the one doing that. It's actually going to be my dad. He has a lot more experience with that. We do not have the type of sandblaster that you would really want to use this for, because this is pretty much just a construction one for wide areas, and he's going to try and see what he can do with it. This definitely has gotten the most so far, which probably isn't very surprising, but it looks like it's doing a decent job. The problem is I can't tell what's been sandblasted and what's just dust built up on the top. Because like this almost looks like it's dust built up. This has definitely been like roughed. Some of this stuff looks like it is too. It looks like the bolt is the thing that hasn't been hit almost at all.
I've been hitting it.
What?
I said I've been hitting it.
But when I rub my finger through here, it looks like it takes a shine underneath. Like that. Like that there's just a dust layer. And there's a spider crawling his way across the wall.
It looks like the plastic is still okay, right?
Oh yeah, the plastic's fine. It's actually holding up great. Yeah, you're more than fine on the plastic, and then the tape. It's working great. This is Lucky's one. We're just about to go ahead and blast it. He has it on a slight angle, so that way it's easier for it to spray. The fan over here with the filter is keeping down the dust immensely, by the way. We end up having a clog after a few seconds, but even after a few seconds, you can see how it manages to take the shine right off and eat into the granite. It's actually quite impressive. Sandblasting is a cool thing. So as we were sandblasting, I removed the tape around the edges. The stencil started lifting up, so I was kind of worried that it might have made a softer line than it should have. My dad was spraying from very far away and very straight though, so it actually turns out it did pretty well. These little areas like right here is actually just super glue, and I'm going to scrape that off, but it definitely isn't too bad. So used a razor knife just to kind of clean off the super glue that was still here, and it's looking very nice. Assistant, I need assistance. I need assistance if you would. Do you have your knife so we can do cut this and see how it's gonna look? You want to just slice the edges there? Blow off the sand first though, so it's not getting into your blade.
Oh, whatever. I can sharpen it.
Okay.
Just.
Yep, so I'm just going to try and flip it up. I end up using Gorilla tape. T-Rex tape probably could work too, but that's the tape I used around the edges here. It ended up working out quite well in terms of being able to resist the sandblasting. I figured because it's pretty rubbery, like a rubberized tape, that it would work well. Oh, I'm nervous. Another one, you know. You don't know how it's going to look until you see it. And I've never done anything like this before. I just figure that this might be a valid way to do it. We'll try and preserve this if we can, in case she wants to use it for memorial thing, paint it or whatever. You here for the great unveil too?
Yes, I am.
Oh, cut toward my hand. Okay, it's definitely not bad at all.
Looks awesome.
I have glue on here. Again, all I need to do is just take this razor blade and just scrape across the surface, and it'll clean it right up just like that. Yeah, that came out very, very good.
Yeah, I think so.
Look on the camera. It looks great in the camera too.
So that's it. Sadly, I was not able to get any better shots of these as my friend needed to leave very shortly after with them. But I was very happy with how they turned out, especially as I never did anything like this before. My dad's help was definitely appreciated and went a long way with making this successful too. And it was very good to test PLA as a stencil material. I'm really happy with how it worked out for sandblasting. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully this video might be useful for you too. Please feel free to leave a comment, to subscribe if you haven't already, and to leave a like if it is a useful video. Thank you guys very much for watching, and bye!
It would help if we had a proper surface. Amazingly enough, a shop vac doesn't make a good table.
Of course, where's my I got 5 buckets and now I don't know where my diamonds are.
Was recording, Dad. Do you want me to scoot? You can scoot it back some if you want.